Before we begin our peaceful journey into the ancient wisdom of Tibet tonight, I'd love to know where you are in the world and what time it is for you right now. Please take a moment to leave a comment and let us know. There's something beautiful about knowing that people all around the globe, in different time zones, are joining together to find peace in these timeless teachings. If these stories bring you comfort and help quiet your mind, please consider subscribing. Your subscription helps us continue sharing these gentle paths to inner wisdom. As you settle into this quiet space, allow your breathing to slow and deepen. Your surroundings begin to fade as your imagination awakens. The sounds around you transform into the whisper of wind across vast mountain peaks and the distant chanting of monks. You find yourself walking along a narrow stone path high in the Himalayas of ancient Tibet. The air is thin and crisp against your skin, carrying the pure scent of snow and juniper that drifts from the sacred groves dotting the mountainside. You can feel the smooth, worn stones beneath your feet, polished by countless pilgrims who have walked this path before you. Prayer flags flutter in the mountain breeze, their bright colors dancing against the deep blue sky. The sound of your own footsteps mingles with the distant tinkling of bells from a monastery hidden somewhere among the peaks. As you round a bend in the path, a magnificent sight comes into view. Perched on a rocky outcrop, seemingly carved from the mountain itself, stands an ancient monastery. Its white walls gleam in the morning sunlight, and golden roofs catch the light like beacons of wisdom. Smoke rises gently from chimneys, and you can hear the low, resonant sound of horns calling the monks to morning prayers. You approach the monastery gates, where an elderly monk in maroon robes greets you with a warm smile and a gentle bow. His eyes sparkle with kindness and deep understanding. Without words, he gestures for you to follow him into the courtyard, where other monks are beginning their daily activities. Some sweep the stone pathways with careful attention. Others tend to small gardens where hardy mountain flowers bloom despite the altitude. The monk leads you to a quiet corner of the courtyard where an ancient master sits in meditation beneath a gnarled juniper tree. This is Milarepa, one of Tibet's most beloved saints and poets, known throughout the land for his profound realizations and his ability to find enlightenment in the most challenging circumstances. His face bears the weathered lines of one who has spent years in mountain caves. Yet his expression radiates a peace so deep, it seems to emanate from the very core of his being. As you settle nearby on a worn cushion, other monks and visitors gather around Milarepa. A young monk, his face bright with curiosity and eagerness, approaches the master with a question that has been troubling him. "Master Milarepa," he says, bowing respectfully, "I have been practicing meditation for many years, yet I still find my mind filled with thoughts and distractions. When will I finally achieve the empty mind that leads to enlightenment?" Milarepa's eyes twinkle with gentle amusement as he looks at the young monk. Instead of answering directly, he begins to tell a story, his voice carrying the musical quality of one who has spent years chanting in mountain solitude. "Let me tell you about a time when I too was seeking this empty mind you speak of," he begins, his words floating on the thin mountain air like prayer flags on the wind. "Many years ago, when I was still a student, I retreated to a cave high on Mount Kailash to practice intensive meditation. I was determined to achieve the perfect state of no mind that my teacher had described. Day after day, I sat in that cold cave, fighting against every thought that arose, pushing away every sensation, trying to force my mind into emptiness. You can almost feel the icy wind of that high mountain cave as Milarepa continues his tale. For months, I struggled this way, becoming increasingly frustrated with my inability to stop my thoughts. The harder I tried to empty my mind, the more thoughts seemed to arise. It was like trying to smooth water by pressing it with my hand. The more pressure I applied, the more turbulent it became. The young monk leans forward, clearly recognizing his own struggle in Milarepa's words. Around the courtyard, other listeners have quietly gathered, drawn by the master's gentle voice and the wisdom they sense flowing through his story. One morning, Milarepa continues, I emerged from my cave, feeling defeated and discouraged. As I sat on a ledge outside the cave entrance, watching the sun rise over the peaks, I noticed something that changed my understanding forever. A small bird had built its nest in a crevice of the rock face nearby. I watched as this bird went about its morning activities, preening its feathers, calling to its mate, searching for food among the sparse mountain vegetation. What struck me was not what the bird was doing, but how it was doing it. The bird was completely present in each activity, yet it was not trying to be present. It was not fighting against distractions or attempting to achieve some special state of mind. It was simply being itself, naturally and effortlessly. You feel a gentle breeze stir the prayer flags overhead as Milarepa pauses, allowing his words to settle into the hearts of his listeners, like seeds finding fertile ground. In that moment, the master continues, I realized that I had been approaching meditation like a warrior going to battle, when I should have been approaching it like that bird, naturally, without force, without the desperate need to achieve anything. The empty mind I was seeking was not something to be created through effort, but something to be discovered through relaxation. I returned to my cave with this new understanding. Instead of fighting my thoughts, I began to observe them with the same gentle attention I had given to the bird. Instead of trying to push away sensations, I allowed them to come and go like clouds passing through the sky. And gradually, I discovered that the emptiness I had been seeking was not the absence of thoughts, but the spacious awareness in which thoughts arise and dissolve. The young monk's eyes widen with understanding, and you can see a visible relaxation in his posture as the tension of his striving begins to dissolve. Milarepa smiles and places a gentle hand on the young man's shoulder. The mind is like the sky, Milarepa says softly. Sometimes it is filled with clouds, sometimes it is clear, but the sky itself is never disturbed by the weather that passes through it. Your true nature is like that sky, vast, open, and naturally peaceful. You don't need to create this peace, you only need to recognize it. As the morning progresses, you watch the young monk return to his meditation with a new lightness in his step. The desperate striving has been replaced by a gentle curiosity, and you can sense that his practice will never be quite the same. The sun climbs higher over the monastery walls, and the daily rhythm of monastic life continues around you. You observe monks engaged in various activities, some studying ancient texts, others preparing meals, still others engaged in philosophical debates in the courtyard. Each activity is performed with a quality of presence and attention that transforms even the most mundane tasks into expressions of spiritual practice. As the afternoon approaches, you notice a commotion near the monastery gates. A group of travelers has arrived, their clothes dusty from the long journey across the high plateau. Among them is a wealthy merchant, his fine robes and jewelry marking him as a man of considerable means. He has come seeking an audience with the monastery's abbot, hoping to receive teachings that will bring him the peace and happiness that his wealth has failed to provide. The abbot, a a serene figure with eyes that seem to hold the wisdom of countless lifetimes, receives the merchant in a simple room overlooking the courtyard. You find yourself positioned where you can observe this encounter, sensing that something profound is about to unfold. The merchant bows deeply before the abbot, his movements betraying an underlying anxiety, despite his outward show of respect. "Venerable Master," he begins, his voice carrying the urgency of one who has traveled far for answers. "I have come seeking the secret to true happiness. I have accumulated great wealth, built a successful business, and acquired everything I thought I wanted. Yet I find myself more restless and dissatisfied than ever. Please, teach me how to find the peace that seems to elude me." The abbot listens with complete attention, his presence so still and centered that it seems to create a pocket of calm in the room. When the merchant finishes speaking, the abbot nods slowly, and then, rather than offering immediate advice, begins to share a story. "There was once a poor farmer," the abbot begins, his voice carrying the gentle authority of one who has seen deeply into the nature of human suffering and joy, who lived in a small village at the base of these very mountains. This farmer owned nothing but a tiny plot of land, a simple mud brick house, and an old yak that helped him plow his fields. You can almost see this humble farmer as the abbot describes him, working his small plot of land with patient dedication, finding contentment in the simple rhythms of rural life. Despite his poverty, the abbot continues, this farmer was known throughout the village for his cheerful disposition and generous spirit. He would share his meager harvest with neighbors in need, offer shelter to travelers, and always had a kind word for everyone he met. His laughter could be heard echoing across the fields as he worked, and children would gather around him in the evenings to hear his stories. The merchant shifts uncomfortably, perhaps beginning to sense where this story might lead. The abbot's eyes hold a gentle compassion as he continues. One day, a wealthy lord traveling through the region stopped at the farmer's humble dwelling. The lord was amazed by the farmer's obvious contentment and joy. "How can you be so happy with so little?" the lord asked. "I have vast estates, countless servants, and treasures beyond measure, yet I am constantly worried and dissatisfied. What is your secret?" The farmer thought for a moment, then smiled and said, "My lord, perhaps the difference is that you have so much to lose, while I have so little to lose that I am free to enjoy what I have. You spend your energy protecting and increasing your possessions, while I spend mine appreciating and sharing what comes my way." The abbot pauses, allowing the weight of these words to settle in the room, like incense slowly filling a sacred space. The merchant's face shows a mixture of recognition and resistance, as if he understands the truth of the story but finds it difficult to accept. "But surely," the merchant protests, "you're not suggesting that poverty is the path to happiness. I have worked hard for what I have achieved. Are you saying I should give it all away?" The abbot's smile deepens, and you can see the infinite patience of one who has had this conversation many times before. "Not at all," he replies gently. "The farmer's happiness did not come from having little, but from his relationship to what he had. He held his possessions lightly, without clinging or fear of loss. He found joy in sharing rather than hoarding, in appreciating rather than accumulating. The question is not whether you should have wealth or not, but whether your wealth has you. Do you own your possessions, or do they own you? Do you enjoy what you have, or do you constantly worry about losing it? Do you find satisfaction in what you've achieved, or are you always reaching for the next acquisition? You watch as these questions land in the merchant's consciousness like stones dropped into a still pond, creating ripples of recognition and contemplation. His shoulders seem to relax slightly as he begins to consider his relationship to his wealth from this new perspective. But how does one develop this lightness of being? The merchant asks, his voice now carrying genuine curiosity rather than desperate seeking. How can I learn to hold my possessions without being held by them? The abbot rises and walks to the window, gazing out at the courtyard where monks continue their daily activities with mindful attention. Come, he says, gesturing for the merchant to join him. Let me show you something. You follow as they move to the window, where you can observe the scene below. In the courtyard, a young monk is carefully sweeping the stone pathways. His movements are slow and deliberate, and his face shows complete absorption in his task. Every stroke of the broom receives his full attention, as if sweeping were the most important activity in the world. Watch this young monk, the abbot says softly. See how he sweeps. He is not thinking about finishing the task so he can move on to something more important. He is not worried about whether his sweeping is good enough or comparing it to how others sweep. He is simply present with the activity itself, finding completeness in each moment of the task. As you observe, you notice that the monk's sweeping has a quality of meditation to it. There is no hurry, no sense of burden or obligation. Each movement flows naturally into the next, creating a rhythm that seems to harmonize with the mountain breeze and the distant sound of chanting. This is the secret, the abbot continues. Whether you are sweeping a courtyard or managing a business empire, the key is to be fully present with what you are doing without being attached to the results. The monk sweeps not to achieve a clean courtyard, but because sweeping is what this moment calls for. When he finishes, he will move to his next activity with the same presence and attention. The merchant watches intently, and you can see understanding beginning to dawn in his eyes. So, you're saying that I can continue my business activities, but I should approach them differently? Exactly, the abbot nods. The problem is not your wealth or your business, but your attachment to them. When you can engage fully in your work, without being driven by fear of loss or greed for gain, when you can enjoy your possessions without being possessed by them, then you will find the peace you seek. But this seems so difficult, the merchant sighs. How can I change patterns of thinking and feeling that have been with me for so many years? The abbot's eyes twinkle with gentle humor. Let me tell you another story, he says, settling back into his chair. There was once a master archer who was renowned throughout the land for his incredible skill. People would travel from distant provinces to watch him shoot, for he could hit the smallest target at impossible distances. You settle in to listen, sensing that this story will reveal another layer of wisdom about the nature of mastery and attachment. One day, a young man approached this master archer and begged to become his student. "Master," he said, "I want to learn to shoot as perfectly as you do. Please teach me your secrets." The master agreed to take him as a student, but his first instructions surprised the young man greatly. For the first year, the master said, "You will not touch a bow or arrow. Instead, you will spend your time learning to see." The student was confused and disappointed, but he trusted his teacher and began the strange training. Every day, the master would take the student to different locations and teach him to observe with complete attention. They would sit by a stream and watch the water flow, noting every ripple and eddy. They would observe birds in flight, studying the subtle adjustments of wing and tail that allowed perfect navigation through the air. They would watch clouds form and dissolve, learning to see the constant dance of change in what appeared to be stillness. The merchant leans forward, clearly intrigued by this unconventional approach to learning archery. You too find yourself drawn into the story, wondering how this training could possibly relate to shooting arrows. After a full year of this training, the abbot continues, the student's perception had become incredibly refined. He could see details that had previously escaped his notice, and his mind had developed a quality of calm, focused attention. Only then did the master hand him a bow. Now, the master said, you will learn to shoot, but remember, the target is not your enemy to be conquered. It is simply where the arrow naturally wants to go. Your job is not to force the arrow to hit the target, but to create the conditions where hitting the target becomes inevitable. The student began his archery training with this understanding. Instead of straining and forcing, he learned to relax into the natural flow of drawing, aiming, and releasing. He discovered that when his mind was calm and his attention was clear, the arrow seemed to find its own way to the target. The abbot pauses, allowing the merchant to absorb the implications of this story. Outside the window, the afternoon light is beginning to slant across the courtyard, casting long shadows that dance with the movement of the prayer flags. Within a few years, the abbot concludes, this student had become a master archer himself, renowned not just for his accuracy, but for the effortless grace with which he shot. People would say that he didn't shoot arrows. The arrows shot themselves. The merchant sits in thoughtful silence for several moments before speaking. I think I understand, he says slowly. The archer's skill came not from trying harder, but from developing the right relationship to his practice. He learned to work with natural principles rather than against them. Precisely, the abbot nods approvingly. And this is how you can transform your relationship to your wealth and business. Instead of approaching them with grasping and fear, you can learn to work with the natural principles of generosity, presence, and non-attachment. Instead of forcing outcomes, you can create the conditions where success arises naturally. But how do I begin this transformation? The merchant asks. What is my equivalent of learning to see? The abbot smiles and gestures toward the courtyard below. Begin with small things. When you eat your next meal, eat it with complete attention, tasting every bite without thinking about your next business deal. When you walk, feel your feet touching the ground without planning your next acquisition. When you speak with your employees, listen to them completely without calculating how their words might affect your profits. These small practices of presence and attention will gradually transform your entire approach to life. You will begin to find satisfaction in the process rather than only in the results. You will discover that success achieved through presence and non-attachment is far more fulfilling than success achieved through grasping and fear. As the afternoon progresses, you watch the merchant's entire demeanor change. The tight lines around his eyes begin to soften, and his breathing becomes deeper and more relaxed. He spends the rest of the day observing the monastery's rhythms, participating in simple activities with a quality of attention he has never brought to his business dealings. When evening arrives, and it is time for the merchant to continue his journey, he bows deeply to the abbot with genuine gratitude. "Thank you, Master," he says. "I came seeking a secret technique for happiness, but you have given me something far more valuable, a new way of being in the world." As you watch the merchant depart, his step lighter and his face more peaceful than when he arrived, you reflect on the profound simplicity of the teachings you have witnessed. The path to contentment lies not in changing external circumstances, but in transforming our relationship to whatever circumstances we find ourselves in. The evening light begins to fade over the monastery, and the sound of evening prayers drifts across the courtyard. You find yourself drawn to a small shrine room where an elderly lama sits in meditation before a statue of the Buddha. This is Lama Tsongkhapa, one of Tibet's greatest scholars and practitioners, known for his ability to synthesize complex philosophical teachings into practical wisdom for daily life. As you settle quietly in the back of the shrine room, you notice a young Western traveler who has somehow found his way to this remote monastery. He sits uncomfortably on a meditation cushion, clearly struggling with the unfamiliar posture and the silence. His face shows the restless energy of someone accustomed to constant activity and stimulation. When the meditation period ends, the young traveler approaches Lama Tsongkhapa with obvious frustration. "Venerable Sir," he says, his words tumbling out in a rush, "I have traveled halfway around the world to learn meditation and find inner peace. But every time I try to sit quietly, my mind goes crazy. I think about everything I need to do back home. I worry about my job. I plan conversations I need to have. How can I possibly find peace when my mind won't stop racing?" Lama Tsongkhapa's eyes hold the gentle wisdom of one who has guided countless students through the challenges of beginning practice. Instead of offering immediate advice, he invites the young man to join him for a walk in the monastery's garden as the stars begin to appear in the clear mountain sky. You follow at a respectful distance as they walk among the hardy mountain plants that somehow thrive in this harsh environment. The Lama moves slowly, pausing occasionally to observe a particular flower or to listen to the wind moving through the prayer flags. "Tell me," the Lama says as they walk, "what do you do for work in your country?" "I'm a software engineer," the young man replies. "I design computer programs for a technology company. It's very demanding work. Lots of deadlines, constant pressure to innovate, always something urgent that needs attention. The Lama nods thoughtfully. "And when you are writing these computer programs, what happens if you try to force the code to work before you understand the underlying logic?" The young man looks surprised by the question, but considers it seriously. "Well, it doesn't work. You get errors, bugs, crashes. You have to understand the fundamental principles first, then build the program step by step, testing each component before moving to the next." "Ah," the Lama smiles. "And what happens if you become impatient with this process and try to skip steps or rush to the final result?" "You create more problems," the young man admits. "The program becomes unstable, unreliable. It's actually faster in the long run to go slowly and do each step properly." The Lama stops walking and turns to face his companion, his eyes twinkling with gentle humor. "Your mind is like a very complex computer program that has been running for many years without proper maintenance. It has accumulated countless subroutines of worry, planning, and mental chatter. When you sit in meditation, you are essentially trying to debug this program." The young man's face lights up with recognition. "So, when I try to force my mind to be quiet immediately, it's like trying to fix a complex program without understanding how it works." "Exactly," the Lama nods. "Meditation is not about forcing your mind into silence. It is about learning to observe the patterns of your mental activity with the same patient attention you would bring to debugging a program. You notice what thoughts arise, how they connect to each other, what triggers certain mental routines." As they continue walking, the Lama elaborates on this analogy. "In your work, when you encounter a bug in a program, do you become angry with the computer? Do you judge yourself as a failure? Or do you simply observe the error with curiosity and work systematically to understand its cause? I observe it objectively, the young man replies. Getting emotional about bugs doesn't help solve them. You have to stay calm and analytical. Sigh. This is exactly the attitude to bring to meditation, the Lama explains. When you notice your mind wandering or racing, don't judge it as a failure. Simply observe it with the same calm curiosity you would bring to a programming challenge. Notice what kinds of thoughts arise, what patterns they follow, how they affect your emotional state. They pause beside a small pond that reflects the emerging stars. The Lama picks up a pebble and tosses it gently into the water, creating ripples that spread across the surface. Watch the ripples, he says softly. They arise, spread across the surface, and gradually fade away. Your thoughts are like these ripples. They arise in the mind, create patterns of activity, and naturally subside if you don't keep feeding them with attention. The young man watches the water return to stillness, and you can see understanding beginning to dawn in his expression. So, I don't need to stop the ripples from arising. I just need to stop throwing more stones? Beautiful. The Lama smiles. You are beginning to understand. Meditation is not about creating a mind without thoughts. It is about learning not to be disturbed by the thoughts that naturally arise. Like the pond, your mind has a natural tendency towards stillness. You just need to stop agitating it with constant mental activity. As they walk back toward the monastery, the Lama shares one more insight. In your programming work, you probably have times when you step away from a difficult problem, perhaps take a walk or have a cup of tea, and often, when you return, the solution becomes clear. Yes, that happens all the time, the young man agrees. Sometimes, the best solutions come when I'm not actively trying to solve the problem. This is because you allow your deeper intelligence to work without interference from your analytical mind, the Lama explains. Meditation cultivates this same quality of relaxed awareness. When you stop trying so hard to control your mental processes, your natural wisdom has space to emerge. That evening, you observe the young traveler return to meditation with a completely different approach. Instead of fighting his thoughts, he watches them with the patient curiosity of a programmer debugging code. Instead of judging his wandering mind, he gently redirects his attention like correcting a minor error. The transformation in his practice is immediate and profound. As the night deepens over the monastery, you find yourself in the main temple hall, where the monks gather for evening prayers. The space is illuminated by butter lamps that cast dancing shadows on the ancient murals, depicting the lives of great masters and the teachings of the Buddha. The air is thick with the scent of juniper incense and the resonant sound of deep chanting. Among the assembled monks, you notice one figure who stands out, an elderly master known throughout Tibet as Drukpa Kunli, though the monks refer to him respectfully as the divine madman. His unconventional teaching methods and profound realizations have made him a legend, though his approach often puzzles those who expect spiritual teachers to conform to traditional expectations. After the evening prayers conclude, a group of young monks approaches Drukpa Kunli with a question that has been troubling them. Their spokesman, an earnest young man with intelligent eyes, bows respectfully before speaking. "Master," he begins, "we have been studying the texts that teach about the emptiness of all phenomena, the illusory nature of the self, and the ultimate unreality of the world we perceive. We understand these teachings intellectually, but we struggle to integrate them into our daily experience. How can we live normally while truly understanding that everything is empty and illusory?" Drukpa Kunli's eyes sparkle with mischief as he considers the question. Instead of launching into a philosophical discourse, he suddenly reaches out and pinches the young monk's arm quite firmly. "Ouch!" the monk exclaims, instinctively pulling his arm away and rubbing the spot where he was pinched. "Ah," Drukpa Kunli grins. So the illusory arm of the non-existent self felt pain from the empty pinch of the unreal teacher. How interesting. The young monk looks confused and slightly embarrassed, unsure whether he has been mocked or taught. The other monks shift uncomfortably, not knowing how to interpret their master's unconventional response. Drukpa Kunli's expression softens, and he places a gentle hand on the young monk's shoulder. "My dear student," he says kindly, "you are trying to live in two different worlds at once. The world of absolute truth where everything is empty and illusory, and the world of relative truth where pain hurts and kindness heals. The secret is not to choose one over the other, but to understand how they work together." He gestures for the monks to sit in a circle around him as he elaborates on this teaching. You position yourself where you can observe this unconventional Dharma talk, sensing that profound wisdom is about to be shared in an unexpected way. When you study emptiness, Drukpa Kunli continues, you learn that all phenomena lack inherent existence. They arise through the interdependence of causes and conditions, like reflections in a mirror or images in a dream. This is absolutely true from the ultimate perspective, but this doesn't mean that phenomena don't function in the relative world. Think of a dream, he suggests. While you are dreaming, the dream characters and events seem completely real. You feel emotions, experience pleasure and pain, make decisions based on dream circumstances. The fact that it's just a dream doesn't make the dream experience any less vivid or meaningful while it's happening. The young monk who was pinched nods slowly, beginning to see the connection. So, you're saying that even though everything is ultimately empty, we still need to engage with the relative reality of our experience. Exactly, Drukpa Kunli beams. Understanding emptiness doesn't mean becoming indifferent to life. It means engaging with life more skillfully because you're not fooled by appearances. You can play your role in the cosmic drama without forgetting that it's a drama. He stands up and begins to pace around the circle of monks, his movements animated as he warms to his teaching. Let me tell you about a time when this understanding saved my life, he says, his voice taking on the cadence of a storyteller. Many years ago, I was traveling through a remote region when I encountered a group of bandits who demanded all my possessions. Now, I could have told them that possessions are ultimately empty and illusory, that theft is just a concept in the relative world, that their bandit nature and my victim nature are both without inherent existence. The monks chuckle softly, imagining how such a philosophical response might be received by armed robbers. But instead, Drukpa Kunli continues with a grin. I gave them everything I had and thanked them for the teaching on non-attachment. I understood that while possessions are ultimately empty, the bandits' knives were relatively sharp. I could appreciate the emptiness of the situation while still responding appropriately to its relative reality. The beautiful thing was that my genuine lack of attachment to my possessions, combined with my gratitude for the lesson, so surprised the bandits that they ended up giving everything back and asking for teachings on the Dharma. The understanding of emptiness didn't make me passive, it made me more skillful in my response. One of the younger monks raises his hand tentatively. But Master, how do we maintain this balance? How do we care about things without being attached to them? How do we engage fully with life while remembering its ultimate emptiness? Drukpa Kunli's expression becomes more serious, though his eyes retain their characteristic twinkle. This is the heart of the practice, he says. It's like being an actor in a play. A good actor becomes completely absorbed in their role. They feel the character's emotions, speak the lines with conviction, interact authentically with other characters, but they never forget that they're acting. When the play ends, the actor doesn't continue to believe they are the character. They don't carry the character's problems home with them. They can appreciate the beauty of the performance while understanding its constructed nature. This is how to live with the understanding of emptiness. You play your role as a human being completely and authentically. You feel emotions, form relationships, work toward goals, respond to challenges. But you maintain the awareness that this is all a kind of cosmic play, a dance of interdependent phenomena arising and dissolving in the space of awareness. The monks sit in contemplative silence, absorbing this teaching. You can see that Drukpa Kunli's unconventional approach has succeeded in making abstract philosophical concepts tangible and practical. Let me give you a practice, the master continues. For the next week, approach one activity each day as if you were an actor playing a role. If you're sweeping, become completely absorbed in playing the role of someone who sweeps with perfect attention. If you're studying, embody the character of an ideal student. If you're eating, perform the role of someone who tastes each bite with complete presence. But remember throughout that you are playing a role. This will help you engage fully while maintaining the lightness that comes from understanding the constructed nature of all identities and activities. As the evening teaching concludes, you watch the monks disperse with a new quality of playfulness in their movements. They seem to carry themselves more lightly, as if they have been given permission to take their practice seriously, without taking themselves too seriously. The night grows deeper, and you find yourself drawn to a small meditation hall, where a few dedicated practitioners maintain an all-night vigil. Among them sits Jetsun Milarepa again, but this time he appears as he did in his later years, a figure of such profound realization that his very presence seems to emanate the peace and freedom he discovered through decades of intensive practice. A middle-aged woman, clearly a serious practitioner who has traveled far to receive teachings, approaches Milarepa during a break in the meditation. Her face shows the weariness of one who has been struggling with deep spiritual questions for many years. "Revered Milarepa," she says, her voice carrying both respect and a hint of desperation. "I have been practicing meditation and studying the Dharma for over 20 years. I have attended countless teachings, completed numerous retreats, and memorized vast amounts of scripture, yet I feel no closer to enlightenment than when I began. In fact, sometimes I feel more confused and discouraged than ever. What am I doing wrong?" Milarepa's response surprises everyone present. Instead of offering comfort or advice, he begins to laugh, not mockingly, but with genuine delight, as if the woman has just told him the most wonderful joke. "My dear friend," he says when his laughter subsides, "you have just described the most encouraging spiritual progress I have heard in years." The woman looks bewildered, clearly not understanding how her sense of failure could be seen as progress. The other meditators lean in closer, equally curious about this unexpected response. "Let me explain," Milarepa continues, his voice warm with compassion. "When you first began practicing 20 years ago, you probably thought Enlightenment was something you could achieve through effort and accumulation, accumulating knowledge, accumulating merit, accumulating experiences. You approached it like climbing a mountain, believing that if you just worked hard enough and long enough, you would eventually reach the summit. The woman nods, recognizing the truth of his description. Yes, that's exactly how I approached it. I thought if I just practiced harder, studied more, attended more retreats, I would eventually get it. And now, Milarepa continues, after 20 years of sincere effort, you have discovered that this approach doesn't work. You have learned through direct experience that enlightenment cannot be achieved through accumulation or effort. This is not failure. This is the most important realization on the spiritual path. He pauses to let this sink in before continuing. Most people spend their entire lives believing that spiritual realization is something they can acquire through doing. They never discover the futility of this approach because they never practice long enough or sincerely enough to exhaust the strategy of seeking. But you have practiced with such dedication that you have worn out the seeking mind. You have discovered that the one who is trying to become enlightened is the very obstacle to enlightenment. This is not a problem to be solved. It is the solution itself. The woman's expression begins to shift from confusion to curiosity. But if effort and practice don't lead to enlightenment, what does? Should I stop practicing altogether? Milarepa's eyes twinkle with the same gentle humor you observed earlier. Let me tell you about the day I stopped seeking enlightenment and found it instead, he says, settling into the storytelling posture that signals another profound teaching is about to unfold. After many years of intensive practice in mountain caves, I had reached a state of complete exhaustion. Not physical exhaustion, but spiritual exhaustion. I had tried every technique, followed every instruction, pushed myself to the limits of human endurance, yet the enlightenment I sought remained as elusive as ever. One morning, I sat down for what I thought would be another session of effortful meditation, but as I settled into my posture, something unexpected happened. I simply couldn't muster the energy to try anymore. I was too tired to seek, too weary to strive, too exhausted to make any effort at all. So I just sat there, not meditating, not seeking, not trying to achieve anything. I was like a deflated balloon, completely empty of ambition or spiritual desire. And in that moment of complete surrender, of total giving up, I noticed something extraordinary. The meditation hall has become completely still, as if everyone present is holding their breath, waiting for the revelation that is about to be shared. I noticed that awareness was still present. Milarepa continues softly. Even though I had stopped trying to be aware, awareness was there. Even though I had given up seeking enlightenment, the natural clarity of mind was shining by itself. Even though I had abandoned all spiritual effort, peace was present without any effort on my part. In that moment, I realized that everything I had been seeking was already present. The awareness I was trying to cultivate was the very awareness that was seeking. The peace I was trying to achieve was the natural state of mind when it stops trying to achieve anything. The enlightenment I was pursuing was the very consciousness that was doing the pursuing. The woman's eyes widen with recognition, and you can see that something fundamental is shifting in her understanding. So, you're saying that what we seek is what is seeking? Exactly, Milarepa nods. The seeker and the sought are one. The meditator and the object of meditation are one. The one who wants to be enlightened and enlightenment itself are one. When you truly understand this, the whole spiritual search collapses into the simple recognition of what has always been present. But this doesn't mean that practice is useless, he continues, anticipating the next question. Practice serves a crucial function. It exhausts the seeking mind. It's like polishing a mirror. The polishing doesn't create the mirror's capacity to reflect. It simply removes the dust that obscures the reflection. Similarly, practice doesn't create enlightenment. It removes the mental activity that obscures our natural awareness. Your 20 years of sincere practice have been polishing the mirror of your mind. The discouragement you feel is actually the dust being removed. The confusion you experience is the seeking mind beginning to exhaust itself. You are much closer to realization than you think, not because you have achieved something, but because you are beginning to see through the illusion that there is anything to achieve. As the night progresses, you observe the woman's practice transform completely. Instead of striving for special states or trying to achieve enlightenment, she simply rests in the natural awareness that is already present. The desperate seeking has been replaced by a gentle recognition of what has always been here. The first light of dawn begins to appear over the mountain peaks, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and gold. The all-night meditation session is coming to an end, and you feel a deep sense of completion, as if you have witnessed something sacred and transformative. As the morning light fills the meditation hall, Milarepa offers one final teaching to the assembled practitioners. Remember, he says, his voice carrying the authority of one who has traveled the entire spiritual path and emerged into freedom. Enlightenment is not a destination you reach, but a recognition of where you have always been. It is not a state you achieve, but an understanding of your natural state. It is not something you become, but a remembering of what you have always been. The path is important, but only because it leads you back to the pathless state of simple being. Practice is valuable, but only because it reveals the effortless awareness that needs no practice. Seeking has its place, but only because it eventually exhausts itself and reveals the natural fulfillment that was never lost. As the morning prayers begin and the monastery awakens to another day, you find yourself filled with a profound sense of peace and understanding. The teachings you have received through these encounters with great masters have not given you new information so much as they have reminded you of truths you already knew at the deepest level. You realize that your journey through this ancient monastery has been like a dream within a dream, a symbolic representation of the inner journey that every sincere seeker must take. The masters you have encountered represent aspects of wisdom that exist within your own consciousness. The teachings you have heard are echoes of the understanding that is your birthright. As you prepare to leave this sacred place and return to the world of ordinary consciousness, you carry with you the essence of what you have learned. You understand that peace is not something to be achieved, but something to be recognized. You know that wisdom is not something to be acquired, but something to be uncovered. You realize that the enlightenment you seek is the very awareness that is seeking it. The mountain path that leads away from the monastery stretches before you, winding down through the valleys toward the world below. But you know now that wherever this path may lead, you carry the monastery within you. The teachings you have received are not bound by time or place. They are timeless truths that will continue to unfold in your understanding long after this journey ends. As you take your first steps down the mountain path, the morning sun rises fully over the peaks, illuminating the entire landscape with golden light. Prayer flags flutter in the mountain breeze, carrying their silent blessings across the vast expanse of sky. The sound of morning chanting drifts down from the monastery, a reminder of the eternal practice of awakening that continues in every moment. You walk slowly, savoring each step, knowing that this descent from the mountain is not an ending but a beginning. You are returning to the world with new eyes, carrying the wisdom of the masters into the ordinary activities of daily life. Every conversation will be an opportunity to practice presence. Every challenge will be a chance to apply equanimity. Every moment will be an invitation to remember your true nature. The path winds through forests of ancient rhododendrons and across meadows where wildflowers bloom in the thin mountain air. Each turn in the path reveals new vistas, new perspectives on the landscape you are leaving behind. But you know that the most important vista is the one that opens within your own consciousness, the recognition of the vast open awareness that is your deepest identity. As the monastery disappears behind the mountain peaks and you continue your descent toward the world below, you carry with you the greatest teaching of all, the understanding that you are not separate from the wisdom you have encountered. The masters you have met are reflections of your own Buddha nature. The peace you have touched is your natural state. The freedom you have glimpsed is your birthright. The journey continues, but you are no longer the same traveler who began this ascent. You have been transformed by the ancient wisdom of Tibet, awakened to truths that transcend time and culture. As you walk the path that leads back to ordinary life, you do so with the extraordinary understanding that there is nothing ordinary about existence itself, that every moment is sacred, every breath is a teaching, every step is a prayer. And as the mountain path gradually gives way to the valleys below, as the thin air of the heights is replaced by the denser atmosphere of the lowlands, you know that you will never truly leave this sacred place. It lives within you now, a source of wisdom and peace that you can access in any moment, in any circumstance, simply by remembering who you truly are, beneath all the roles you play and all the stories you tell about yourself. The ancient wisdom of Tibet has become your wisdom. The peace of the mountains has become your peace. The freedom of the masters has revealed itself as your own freedom. And as you continue your journey through life, you do so with the unshakable knowledge that you are already home, already whole, already free, not because you have achieved something, but because you have remembered what you have always been. Sleep now, dear traveler, in the peace that passes understanding. Rest in the wisdom that needs no words. Dream in the freedom that knows no boundaries. And when you wake, may you remember that the monastery is wherever you are, the teachings are whatever you encounter, and the path is whatever step you are taking right now. From the roof of the world to the depths of your heart, the ancient wisdom flows like a river of light, carrying you always toward the recognition of your own Buddha nature. May you rest in this knowing. May you wake in this peace. May you live in this freedom. Good night, and may your dreams be filled with the blessings of the masters and the eternal wisdom of the mountains. As you continue your descent from the sacred heights, the path leads you through a series of small villages nestled in the mountain valleys. Each village tells its own story of how the ancient wisdom has been preserved and passed down through generations of simple mountain people who have never read a single Dharma text, yet embody the teachings in their daily lives. In the first village you encounter, you witness an elderly woman tending to her small garden with the same mindful attention you observed in the monastery. Every movement is deliberate and present, every gesture an expression of meditation in action. She waters each plant with careful attention, not because she has studied the teachings on mindfulness, but because this is simply how she has always approached her work. A young child runs up to her, crying because he has fallen and scraped his knee. Without interrupting her gardening rhythm, the woman gently cleans the wound, applies a simple herbal remedy, and offers comfort with such natural compassion that you realize you are witnessing the spontaneous expression of bodhisattva activity. She has never heard the term loving kindness, yet her every action embodies it perfectly. This scene reminds you of something Milarepa once said about the difference between intellectual understanding and embodied wisdom. You can study the nature of water for a lifetime, he had taught, but until you drink it, you will never truly know what water island. The villagers may not know the philosophical terms for compassion and mindfulness, but they drink from these qualities every day. As you continue through the village, you observe how the teachings you encountered in the monastery are lived out in countless small ways. A shopkeeper gives extra rice to a customer who cannot afford the full amount, not because he has studied the parameter of generosity, but because it simply feels right. A group of children play together with such natural joy and presence that their laughter becomes a teaching on the Buddha nature that exists in all beings. You pause at the village tea house, where travelers and locals gather to share stories and rest from their journeys. An old man with weathered hands and twinkling eyes invites you to join him for tea. As you sit together in comfortable silence, sipping the warm, fragrant brew, you realize that this simple act of sharing tea contains all the elements of a perfect meditation retreat: presence, gratitude, connection, and the recognition of our fundamental interdependence. The old man begins to speak, his voice carrying the wisdom of one who has lived close to the earth and the rhythms of nature for many decades. You have the look of one who has been to the monastery, he observes with a gentle smile. I can see it in your eyes, that particular quality of peace that comes from receiving the teachings of the masters. You nod, curious to hear what this simple villager might have to say about the profound teachings you have encountered. His next words surprise you with their depth and insight. I have never been to the monastery myself, he continues, but the mountains have been my teacher for 70 years. Every season has brought its lessons, every storm has offered its wisdom, every sunrise has been a teaching on impermanence and renewal. He gestures toward the peaks that surround the village, their snow-covered summits gleaming in the afternoon light. The mountains teach patience. They have stood here for millions of years, witnessing the rise and fall of countless civilizations, yet they remain unmoved by the dramas that seem so important to us humans. They teach us about the long view, about the perspective that comes from understanding our place in the vast sweep of time. The weather teaches us about impermanence, he continues, his eyes following a cloud as it drifts across the sky. No storm lasts forever, no matter how fierce. No drought continues indefinitely, no matter how severe. Everything changes, everything passes, everything transforms into something else. When you truly understand this, you stop resisting the difficult times and stop clinging to the pleasant ones. You find yourself drawn into this unexpected Dharma talk, realizing that you are receiving teachings as profound as any you heard in the monastery, but expressed in the simple language of lived experience rather than philosophical concepts. The seasons teach us about cycles, the old man goes on, warming to his theme. Spring always follows winter, no matter how long and harsh the cold months have been. This teaches us hope, but also acceptance. We learn to appreciate each season for what it offers, rather than always wishing for a different time of year. In my youth, I used to hate winter. I would spend the cold months longing for spring, counting the days until the snow would melt and the flowers would bloom again. But as I grew older, I began to see the beauty and necessity of winter. The earth needs this time of rest, this period of dormancy that allows for the renewal that comes with spring. I learned to find beauty in the stark landscape of winter, to appreciate the silence that comes with the snow, to value the time for inner reflection that the long nights provide. Now, I love each season equally because I understand that they are all part of one continuous cycle, each one necessary for the others to exist. As he speaks, you realize that this simple mountain villager has discovered through direct experience the same truths about acceptance and impermanence that the monastery masters teach through sophisticated philosophical analysis. His wisdom has been earned through decades of patient observation and humble acceptance of life's natural rhythms. The animals are also great teachers, he continues, pointing to a group of yaks grazing peacefully in a nearby meadow. Watch how they live completely in the present moment. They don't worry about tomorrow's grass or regret yesterday's missed opportunities. And ride in regret, to resgaten marma. They are come despennings, to are come by. They don't worry about tomorrow's grass. They don't worry about tomorrow's grass. They simply eat when they are hungry, rest when they are tired, and respond to whatever the current moment requires. Humans have lost this natural wisdom. We spend so much time thinking about the past and future that we miss the only time that actually exists, right now. The animals remind us that life is meant to be lived, not analyzed. As the afternoon progresses, more villagers join your conversation around the tea house table. Each one contributes their own insights, their own observations about the teachings that nature provides to those who are willing to pay attention. You realize that you are participating in an informal sangha, a community of practitioners who may not use traditional Buddhist terminology, but who embody the essence of the teachings in their daily lives. A middle-aged woman shares her understanding of interdependence, learned through years of farming in this challenging mountain environment. Nothing grows alone here, she explains. Every plant depends on the soil, which depends on the decomposition of previous generations of plants. The soil depends on the weather, which depends on the great patterns of wind and water that circle the globe. The weather depends on the sun, which depends on forces we cannot even imagine. When you farm in the mountains, you learn that you are not separate from this web of relationships. Your success depends on your ability to work with natural forces rather than against them. You learn humility because you realize how little control you actually have. You learn gratitude because you see how many factors must align for even the simplest crop to grow. A young father speaks about the lessons his children have taught him about Buddha nature. Before I had children, he says, I thought enlightenment was something you had to achieve through years of difficult practice. But watching my children, I see that they are naturally enlightened. They live completely in the present. They love unconditionally. They find joy in the simplest things. Of course, they also get angry and sad and frustrated, but these emotions pass through them like weather through the sky. They don't hold on to negative feelings or build stories around them. They cry when they need to cry, laugh when they feel like laughing, and then move on to the next moment with complete freshness. My children have taught me that enlightenment is not about becoming someone different. It's about remembering how to be natural, how to respond to life with the spontaneity and openness that we all possessed before we learned to complicate everything with our thinking minds. As the sun begins to set behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the village, the conversation gradually turns to the practical application of wisdom in daily life. An elderly craftsman who makes traditional Tibetan carpets shares his understanding of meditation in action. When I weave, he explains, I must be completely present with each knot, each thread, each pattern. If my mind wanders, if I think about other things while I work, the carpet will show the distraction. The quality of attention I bring to my work is reflected in the quality of the finished product. Over the years, I have learned that weaving is a form of meditation. The repetitive motions quiet the mind. The focus required brings me into the present moment, and the gradual emergence of the pattern teaches me about patience and trust in the process. I don't need to sit on a meditation cushion to practice mindfulness. My loom is my meditation hall. But the most important lesson weaving has taught me is about impermanence and non-attachment. I spend months creating a beautiful carpet, pouring my attention and skill into every detail. Then, someone buys it and takes it away, and I must begin again with a blank loom. This has taught me to find satisfaction in the process rather than clinging to the product. I love each carpet while I am making it, but I don't suffer when it leaves my workshop. I understand that my role is to be a channel for beauty and craftsmanship, not to possess the things I create. This understanding has brought me great peace and has made my work a spiritual practice rather than just a way to earn a living. As the evening deepens and the first stars begin to appear in the clear mountain sky, the villagers gradually disperse to their homes and evening activities. You find yourself walking alone through the quiet streets, reflecting on the profound teachings you have received from these simple mountain people. You realize that the monastery and the village represent two complementary approaches to spiritual understanding. The monastery preserves and transmits the formal teachings, the philosophical frameworks, and the systematic practices that have been developed over centuries of spiritual inquiry. The village embodies and demonstrates how these teachings can be lived out in the context of ordinary life, family responsibilities, and practical work. Both approaches are necessary and valuable. The monastery provides the depth and precision that comes from dedicated study and intensive practice. The village provides the integration and application that makes the teachings relevant to everyday human experience. Together, they create a complete picture of what it means to live a spiritually awakened life. As you prepare to leave the village and continue your descent toward the lowlands, you carry with you a new appreciation for the many ways that wisdom can be expressed and embodied. You understand that enlightenment is not the exclusive province of monks and masters, but the birthright of every human being who is willing to pay attention to the teachings that life itself provides. The path leads you through several more villages as you continue your journey down from the mountains. Each community offers its own unique perspective on the timeless truths you have been exploring. In one village, you encounter a group of nomadic herders who have learned the deepest lessons about non-attachment through their lifestyle of constant movement and adaptation to changing circumstances. The leader of this nomadic group, a woman whose face bears the marks of decades spent under the open sky, shares her understanding of freedom and letting go. People think that owning many possessions makes them secure, she explains as you sit around their evening fire. But we have learned that true security comes from needing very little and being able to adapt to any situation. When you live as we do, moving with the seasons and the needs of our animals, you learn that home is not a place, but a state of mind. We carry our home with us wherever we go, not in our possessions, but in our ability to find contentment and peace, regardless of external circumstances. This lifestyle has taught us that attachment to places, things, and even people can become a source of suffering if we cling too tightly. We love deeply, but we also know how to let go when circumstances require it. We appreciate beauty wherever we find it, but we don't try to possess it or make it permanent. Her words remind you of the teachings on impermanence you heard in the monastery, but expressed through the lived experience of a people who have made impermanence their way of life. You see how their nomadic existence has naturally cultivated the qualities of non-attachment and adaptability that spiritual practitioners often struggle to develop through formal meditation practice. As you continue your journey, you pass through a village known for its traditional healers, where you encounter an elderly medicine woman whose understanding of suffering and healing provides another perspective on the Buddha's teachings about the nature of pain and the path to liberation. Sickness and health are not opposites, she explains as you observe her preparing herbal remedies with careful attention and loving intention. They are different expressions of the same life force. My role as a healer is not to fight against illness, but to help restore the natural balance that allows the body's own healing wisdom to function. I have learned that the same principle applies to emotional and spiritual suffering. Pain is not the enemy. It is often the teacher that shows us where we are out of balance, where we are resisting the natural flow of life. My job is not to eliminate all pain, but to help people develop a healthier relationship with the inevitable challenges of human existence. The herbs I use are powerful, but the most important medicine I offer is presence and understanding. When people feel truly seen and accepted in their suffering, when they realize they are not alone in their struggles, healing begins to happen naturally. This is the medicine of compassion, and it is more powerful than any plant or mineral remedy. Her words echo the teachings you heard about the nature of suffering and the healing power of acceptance and compassion. You see how her work as a healer has led her to the same insights about the relationship between resistance and suffering that the monastery masters teach through meditation and philosophical inquiry. In another village, you encounter a group of traditional musicians whose understanding of harmony and rhythm provides a unique perspective on the teachings about balance and the middle way. The lead musician, an elderly man whose fingers dance across the strings of his traditional instrument with decades of practice skill, shares his insights about the spiritual dimensions of music. Music teaches us about the middle way, he explains as his fingers find melodies that seem to capture the very essence of the mountain landscape. If you tune a string too tightly, it will break. If you leave it too loose, it will not produce a clear sound. The perfect note exists in the balance between these extremes. This is also true for life. If we push too hard, we create tension and stress that ultimately leads to breakdown. If we don't apply enough effort, we remain stuck in complacency and never realize our potential. The art of living, like the art of music, lies in finding the perfect tension that allows for both stability and expression. Music also teaches us about impermanence in the most beautiful way. Each note arises, expresses itself fully, and then dissolves to make space for the next note. The beauty of music lies not in trying to make any single note last forever, but in the flowing relationship between all the notes as they arise and pass away. When we try to hold on to a beautiful moment in life, we are like someone trying to make a single musical note last forever. We miss the larger melody that can only emerge when we allow each moment to arise and pass naturally. The music of life is found in the flow, not in the individual notes. As you listen to his music and absorb his teachings, you realize that every aspect of human culture and activity can become a doorway to spiritual understanding when approached with the right awareness and intention. The formal practices of the monastery are valuable, but they are not the only path to wisdom and awakening. Your journey continues through landscapes of breathtaking beauty, each vista offering its own silent teaching about the nature of reality and consciousness. You walk through forests, where ancient trees stand as living monuments to patience and endurance, their rings recording decades of growth through favorable and challenging seasons alike. You cross streams where the water teaches about persistence and adaptability, finding its way around every obstacle, always moving toward its destination, but never forcing its passage. You climb over mountain passes, where the thin air and vast perspectives naturally induce a state of expanded awareness and humility before the immensity of existence. Each element of the natural world becomes a teacher, offering its own unique perspective on the universal principles that the monastery masters have codified into formal teachings. You begin to understand that the Dharma is not something that was invented by human beings, but something that was discovered through careful observation of the natural laws that govern all existence. The Buddha's insights about impermanence, interdependence, and the nature of suffering are not arbitrary philosophical concepts, but accurate descriptions of how reality actually functions. The practices of meditation, mindfulness, and compassion are not artificial techniques imposed on natural human behavior, but methods for aligning ourselves with the fundamental principles that govern all life. As you continue your descent from the mountains, you begin to see how the wisdom you have encountered can be integrated into any lifestyle, any culture, any historical period. The specific forms may change, the rituals, the terminology, the cultural expressions, but the underlying truths remain constant because they are based on the unchanging laws of existence itself. You pass through a region where ancient trade routes converge, and you encounter travelers from many different cultures and traditions. Each group has its own way of expressing spiritual understanding, its own practices and beliefs, yet you begin to see the common threads that run through all authentic spiritual traditions. A group of Hindu pilgrims shares their understanding of the unity that underlies apparent diversity. A caravan of Muslim merchants demonstrates the practice of surrender and devotion in their daily prayers. A family of Christian missionaries embodies the teachings of love and service in their care for the sick and poor. Each tradition uses different language and symbols, but all point toward the same fundamental recognition of our interconnectedness and the possibility of transcending the limited perspective of the separate self. This exposure to diverse spiritual expressions deepens your appreciation for the universal nature of the wisdom you have encountered in the Tibetan Buddhist context. You see that the insights about presence, compassion, and awakening are not the exclusive property of any single tradition, but represent discoveries about the nature of consciousness and reality that can be made by anyone who is willing to look deeply enough. As your journey continues, you find yourself in a large town at the base of the mountains, where the ancient and modern worlds meet in fascinating ways. Here, you encounter people who are trying to integrate traditional wisdom with contemporary life, seeking ways to apply timeless teachings to the challenges and opportunities of the modern world. You visit a school where traditional Tibetan medicine is being taught alongside modern medical techniques, where students learn to see the human being as both a biological organism and an energetic system, where healing is understood to involve not just the treatment of symptoms, but the restoration of balance and harmony on multiple levels. You observe a business where traditional principles of right livelihood are being applied to modern commerce, where profit is balanced with social responsibility, where success is measured not just in financial terms, but in terms of the positive impact on employees, customers, and the broader community. You attend a community center where meditation and mindfulness practices are being offered to people dealing with the stresses of modern life, where ancient techniques for cultivating inner peace are being adapted to help contemporary people find balance in an increasingly fast-paced and complex world. In each of these contexts, you see how the timeless wisdom you encountered in the monastery and villages can be relevant and transformative in any setting. The specific applications may be new, but the underlying principles remain as valid and powerful as they were when first discovered by the ancient masters. You realize that your journey through the mountains has been more than just a symbolic exploration of spiritual teachings. It has been a demonstration of how wisdom can be transmitted across cultures and generations, how truth can be expressed in countless different forms while maintaining its essential integrity, how the insights of the past can illuminate the challenges of the present. As you prepare to complete your descent and return to the world of ordinary consciousness, you carry with you not just intellectual understanding, but embodied wisdom. The teachings you have received have not remained external concepts, but have become integrated into your very being, changing how you see yourself and the world around you. You understand now that the monastery was never really a place you visited, but a state of consciousness you accessed. The masters you encountered were not separate beings, but aspects of your own awakened nature. The wisdom you received was not foreign knowledge, but the remembering of what you have always known at the deepest level. The path that leads away from the mountains and back to ordinary life stretches before you, but you know that you will never really leave this sacred space. It has become part of you, a source of strength and guidance that you can access in any moment, in any circumstance, simply by remembering the truths you have discovered about your own nature and the nature of reality itself. As you take your final steps down from the mountains, the landscape gradually changes from the stark beauty of the high peaks to the gentler contours of the foothills. The air becomes thicker and warmer, the vegetation more lush and varied. You are returning to the world of ordinary human activity, but you carry with you the extraordinary understanding that there is nothing ordinary about existence itself. Every breath is a miracle. Every moment of awareness is a gift. Every encounter with another being is an opportunity to practice the compassion and wisdom you have discovered. The monastery may be behind you, but the teachings live on in every step you take, every word you speak, every choice you make. You realize that the true completion of your journey is not the return to ordinary life, but the integration of extraordinary understanding into ordinary activities. The real test of the wisdom you have gained is not whether you can maintain it in the perfect conditions of a mountain monastery, but whether you can embody it in the midst of the challenges and distractions of daily life. This integration is not a burden but a joy, not a difficult task, but a natural expression of your awakened understanding. When you truly see the sacred nature of all existence, every activity becomes a spiritual practice. When you recognize the Buddha nature in all beings, every interaction becomes an opportunity for mutual awakening. When you understand the impermanent nature of all phenomena, every moment becomes precious and worthy of your full attention. As the mountain path finally gives way to the roads and buildings of the modern world, you pause for a moment to look back at the peaks that have been your teachers and guides. They stand eternal and unchanging, yet you know that you see them now with completely different eyes than when you first began your ascent. The mountains have not changed, but your perception of them has been transformed. Where once you might have seen only rock and snow, You now see the perfect expression of patience and endurance. Where once you might have noticed only their physical grandeur, you now perceive their spiritual significance as symbols of the unchanging awareness that is your deepest nature. This transformation of perception is the real fruit of your journey. You have not gained anything new, but you have learned to see what was always there. You have not become someone different, but you have remembered who you have always been. You have not acquired special powers or abilities, but you have discovered the extraordinary nature of ordinary consciousness. As you turn away from the mountains and face the world that awaits you, you do so with complete confidence in your ability to live from this understanding. You know that challenges will arise, that you will sometimes forget these truths in the midst of difficult circumstances, that the clarity you feel now may sometimes be obscured by the clouds of confusion and reactivity. But you also know that these temporary obscurations cannot touch the essential nature of what you have discovered. Like the sun that continues to shine even when hidden by clouds, your Buddha nature remains perfect and unchanging, regardless of the temporary conditions that may arise in your mind and life. You have learned to trust this deeper reality, to rely on the wisdom and compassion that are your birthright, to find refuge in the awareness that is never born and never dies. This trust is not based on belief or hope, but on direct experience of your own true nature. As you walk forward into your life, you do so as a bridge between the ancient wisdom of the mountains and the contemporary world of human activity. You carry within you the responsibility and the privilege of demonstrating how timeless truths can be lived in modern times, how the insights of the masters can be embodied by ordinary people in ordinary circumstances. This is not a burden but a gift, not a duty but a joy. You have been given the opportunity to participate in the ongoing transmission of wisdom from generation to generation, to add your own unique expression to the eternal song of awakening that has been sung by countless beings throughout history. Your life becomes a teaching, your presence becomes a blessing, your very existence becomes a demonstration of the possibility of awakening that exists within every human being. You may never sit on a throne in a monastery or be recognized as a great master, but you will touch the lives of everyone you encounter with the fragrance of the wisdom you have embodied. This is the true completion of the spiritual journey, not the achievement of some special state or status, but the natural expression of awakened understanding in the midst of ordinary life. The monastery was the beginning, not the end. The real practice starts now, as you learn to live from the understanding you have gained. And as you settle into sleep tonight, you do so with the deep peace that comes from knowing your true nature. You rest in the awareness that is never disturbed by the changing conditions of life. You sleep in the love that is your essence, the wisdom that is your birthright, the freedom that is your deepest reality. The journey through the mountains of Tibet has ended, but the journey of awakening continues. With every breath, every heartbeat, every moment of consciousness, you are no longer seeking enlightenment because you have recognized that you are enlightenment itself, temporarily forgetting and remembering its own nature in the eternal play of existence. Sleep now in this understanding, rest in this peace, dream in this freedom, and when you wake, may you continue to walk the pathless path with the confidence of one who knows that every step is sacred, every moment is holy, every breath is a prayer of gratitude for the incredible gift of conscious existence. From the roof of the world to the depths of your heart, the ancient wisdom flows like a river of light, carrying you always toward the recognition of what you have always been. May you rest in this knowing. May you wake in this peace. May you live in this love. Good night, dear traveler. May your dreams be filled with the blessings of the masters and the eternal wisdom of the mountains. And may you wake tomorrow with fresh eyes to see the sacred in the ordinary, the extraordinary in the everyday, the infinite in the immediate. The ancient teachings speak of the bardo, the intermediate state between sleeping and waking, between one life and the next, between one moment of consciousness and another. As you drift towards sleep tonight, you enter this sacred threshold space where the boundaries between dreaming and waking, between self and other, between time and timelessness begin to dissolve. In this liminal space, the wisdom you have gathered from your journey through the mountains of Tibet continues to work within you, like seeds planted in the fertile darkness of the unconscious mind. The stories of the masters, the teachings of the villagers, the silent instruction of the landscape itself, all of these continue to unfold their meaning in the depths of your being. You remember Milarepa's teaching about the bird that built its nest in the cave, and you feel your own mind settling into its natural state of effortless presence. Like that bird, you are not trying to be enlightened. You are simply being yourself, naturally and completely. The desperate seeking that once drove your spiritual search has been replaced by a gentle recognition of what has always been present. The merchant's story echoes in your consciousness, reminding you that true wealth lies not in what you possess, but in your relationship to whatever you have. As you prepare for sleep, you practice holding your thoughts, your emotions, your very sense of self lightly, like treasures that you can appreciate without needing to grasp or control. The young programmer's breakthrough with the meditation master resonates in your awareness, showing you how to approach your own mental activity with the patient curiosity of a skilled debugger, rather than the frustrated resistance of one who demands immediate results. Your thoughts are not problems to be solved, but patterns to be observed with gentle interest. Drukpa Kunli's teaching about the actor and the role provides a framework for understanding how to engage fully with life while maintaining the lightness that comes from remembering the constructed nature of all identities, experiences. As you drift towards sleep, you can feel yourself settling into the role of the dreamer while never forgetting the awareness that dreams, the dream. The woman who had practiced for 20 years without finding enlightenment becomes a mirror for your own spiritual journey, showing you that the very sense of not having achieved anything is itself a sign of profound progress. The seeking mind that once drove you towards some imagined future attainment has exhausted itself, revealing the natural fulfillment that was never absent. Each teaching, each story, each encounter from your mountain journey continues to reverberate through your consciousness, like the sound of temple bells echoing across vast valleys. The wisdom is not something you have acquired from outside yourself, but something you have remembered from the deepest levels of your own being. The villagers you met along the way demonstrated that enlightenment is not the exclusive province of monks and masters, but the natural expression of any human being who lives with presence, compassion, and acceptance. The old man who found his teacher in the mountains, the woman who learned interdependence through farming, the craftsman who discovered meditation in weaving, all showed you that every activity can become a doorway to awakening when approached with the right understanding. The nomads taught you about the freedom that comes from needing little and being able to adapt to any circumstance. The healer showed you that pain is not the enemy, but often the teacher that points toward where balance needs to be restored. The musician revealed how the middle way manifests in the perfect tension between effort and ease, between structure and spontaneity. All of these teachings converge in this moment as you prepare to surrender to sleep, to let go of the day's activities and concerns, to trust in the natural process of rest and renewal that your body and mind require. Sleep itself becomes a practice of letting go, a daily rehearsal for the ultimate letting go that awaits all beings. But this letting go is not a loss or a defeat. It is a return to the source, a homecoming to the vast awareness that is your deepest nature. In sleep, the boundaries of the separate self dissolve, and you return temporarily to the oceanic consciousness from which all individual waves of experience arise. The dreams that may come tonight are not separate from your spiritual practice, but are another dimension of the same consciousness that has been exploring the teachings throughout your mountain journey. In dreams, the logical mind relaxes its control, and deeper patterns of wisdom can emerge. The symbols and stories that arise in sleep often carry teachings that the rational mind cannot access directly. Some traditions speak of dream yoga, the practice of maintaining awareness even while dreaming, of recognizing the dream state as another opportunity for spiritual development. Whether or not you achieve this level of lucidity, you can trust that the consciousness that dreams is the same consciousness that seeks awakening, and that even unconscious sleep serves the process of integration and understanding. As you feel your body relaxing and your mind beginning to quiet, you can sense the presence of all the masters and teachers who have guided countless beings along the path of awakening. Though separated by centuries and cultures, they are united in their recognition of the same fundamental truths about the nature of consciousness and the possibility of liberation from suffering. The Buddha himself, sitting under the Bodhi tree 2,500 years ago, discovered the same awareness that you are touching right now. Milarepa, meditating in his mountain cave, realized the same natural mind that is present in this moment. The village elders, living their simple lives with presence and compassion, embody the same wisdom that is your birthright. You are not alone in this journey of awakening. You are part of an ancient lineage of seekers and finders, of those who have questioned the nature of reality and discovered the extraordinary truth that lies hidden in plain sight. Your own awakening is not just a personal achievement, but a contribution to the collective evolution of consciousness on this planet. Every moment of presence you cultivate, every act of compassion you perform, every instant of clear seeing you experience adds to the sum total of awakening in the world. You are not just seeking your own liberation, but participating in the liberation of all beings. For in the deepest sense, there are no separate beings to be liberated. The interconnectedness that the teachings point to is not just a philosophical concept, but a lived reality that becomes more apparent as your understanding deepens. Your peace contributes to the peace of the world. Your wisdom illuminates the path for others. Your love expands the field of love that embraces all existence. This understanding brings with it both great responsibility and great freedom. Responsibility because you recognize that your state of consciousness affects everyone and everything around you. Freedom because you realize that you are not a separate individual struggling alone against the forces of ignorance and suffering, but an expression of the same awakened awareness that manifests as all the great teachers and masters. As sleep approaches, you can feel yourself settling into this larger identity, this cosmic perspective that sees your individual life as one note in the vast symphony of existence. Your personal concerns and struggles do not disappear, but they are held within a much larger context that gives them meaning and purpose. The challenges you face become opportunities to practice the teachings you have received. The relationships in your life become laboratories for developing compassion and understanding. The work you do becomes a vehicle for expressing your awakened nature in the world. Every aspect of your existence becomes sacred when seen from this perspective. This sacredness is not something you need to create or achieve. It is the natural state of all existence when perceived with clear eyes. The mountains are sacred not because they have been blessed by holy men, but because they perfectly express the qualities of patience, endurance, and majesty that are inherent in the nature of reality itself. The simple activities of daily life, eating, walking, breathing, speaking, are sacred not because they have been ritualized or formalized, but because they are expressions of the same life force that animates all of existence. When you eat with full presence, you participate in the cosmic process of transformation and nourishment. When you breathe with awareness, you join the universal rhythm that connects all living beings. This recognition of the sacred in the ordinary is perhaps the most practical fruit of your spiritual journey. It means that you don't need special conditions or circumstances to practice the teachings. Every moment offers an opportunity for awakening. Every situation provides a chance to embody wisdom and compassion. The monastery in the mountains was a powerful symbol and a genuine source of teaching, but the real monastery is wherever you are right now. The real teacher is whatever you are experiencing in this moment. The real practice is how you meet whatever arises with presence, acceptance, and love. This doesn't diminish the value of formal practice, study, or retreat. These structured approaches to spiritual development serve important functions in deepening understanding and providing support for the journey. But they are means to an end, not ends in themselves. The ultimate goal is to live from awakened awareness in every moment, regardless of external circumstances. As you continue to relax into sleep, you can feel this understanding settling into your bones, becoming part of your cellular memory, integrating into the very fabric of your being. Tomorrow, when you wake, you may not consciously remember all the details of your mountain journey, but the essence of what you have learned will remain with you. You will find yourself responding to situations with greater patience and wisdom. You will notice moments of natural presence and compassion arising spontaneously. You will catch glimpses of the sacred in the midst of ordinary activities. These will be signs that the teachings have taken root and are beginning to flower in your daily life. The transformation that authentic spiritual practice brings is often subtle and gradual. It's not usually a dramatic sudden change, but a gentle shift in perspective that affects everything while being obvious in nothing. People may notice that you seem more peaceful, more present, more genuinely caring, but they may not be able to identify exactly what has changed. This subtlety is actually a sign of genuine realization. When awakening is authentic, it doesn't need to announce itself or prove its validity. It simply expresses itself naturally through the quality of presence and love that emanates from one who has remembered their true nature. The great masters you encountered in your mountain journey were remarkable, not because they performed miracles or displayed supernatural powers, but because they embodied such complete naturalness and authenticity. They had become so thoroughly themselves that their very presence was a teaching about the possibility of living from one's deepest truth. This is the direction your own development is taking, not toward becoming someone special or different, but toward becoming more completely and authentically yourself. The spiritual path is not about adding something to what you are, but about removing the obstacles that prevent your true nature from shining forth. Like a sculptor who reveals the statue that was always hidden in the marble, spiritual practice reveals the awakened being that has always been present within you. The chiseling away of ignorance, the polishing of awareness, the refinement of compassion, all of these serve to uncover what was never actually absent. This understanding brings tremendous relief because it means you don't have to become perfect or achieve some impossible standard to be worthy of love and happiness. You are already perfect in your essential nature, already worthy of infinite love, already complete in your deepest being. The spiritual journey is simply the process of remembering and embodying this truth. As sleep draws nearer, you can feel yourself relaxing into this fundamental okayness, this basic trust in your own nature and the nature of existence itself. The anxiety and striving that may have characterized your spiritual seeking in the past give way to a gentle confidence in the natural process of awakening that is already underway. You don't need to force anything or make anything happen. You simply need to remain open and available to the wisdom and love that are always seeking to express themselves through you. Like a flower that opens naturally to the sun, your consciousness naturally opens to the light of awareness when the conditions are right. The teachings you have received, the practices you have learned, the insights you have gained, all of these create the conditions that support this natural opening. They are like the gardener's care that helps the flower bloom, not by forcing it open, but by providing the nutrients and environment it needs to unfold according to its own inner nature. Sleep itself is part of this natural process. In sleep, the conscious mind steps aside and allows deeper processes of integration and healing to take place. The wisdom you have absorbed during your waking hours continues to work within you during sleep, weaving itself into the fabric of your being in ways that the rational mind cannot direct or control. Trust this process. Trust the intelligence of your own consciousness to know how to integrate these teachings in the way that serves your highest good. Trust the natural rhythm of sleeping and waking, of learning and integrating, of seeking and finding that characterizes the spiritual journey. You are held by forces much larger and wiser than your individual will or understanding. The same intelligence that grows your hair and beats your heart is also guiding your spiritual development. The same love that holds the planets in their orbits is also supporting your journey toward awakening. This cosmic support is not something you need to earn or deserve. It is freely given to all beings as part of the fundamental structure of existence itself. You are loved not because of what you have achieved or how spiritual you have become, but simply because you exist, because you are a unique and precious expression of the one consciousness that manifests as all things. Rest in this love tonight. Let it surround you like a warm blanket. Let it penetrate every cell of your body. Let it dissolve any remaining sense of separation or unworthiness. You are held. You are cherished. You are blessed beyond measure, simply by virtue of being alive and aware in this moment. The mountain journey you have taken tonight is both a metaphor and a reality. On one level, it represents the inner journey that every sincere seeker must take toward the recognition of their true nature. On another level, it is a real encounter with the wisdom and compassion that are always available to those who are ready to receive them. The masters you met are both historical figures who actually lived and taught, and archetypal representations of the awakened qualities that exist within your own consciousness. The teachings you received are both ancient wisdom that has been preserved for centuries and fresh insights that arise spontaneously when the mind is open and receptive. This paradox is itself a teaching about the nature of reality, which cannot be captured completely by any single perspective or interpretation. Truth is both absolute and relative, both timeless and immediate, both universal and personal. The spiritual path involves learning to hold these apparent contradictions without needing to resolve them into a single, consistent system. Life itself is full of such paradoxes. You are both an individual and part of the whole, both temporary and eternal, both limited and unlimited. The awakened mind learns to embrace these paradoxes rather than trying to eliminate them, finding in their very contradictoriness a pointer to the mystery that lies beyond all conceptual understanding. As you drift towards sleep, you can feel yourself settling into this mystery, this unknowing that is more profound than any knowledge, this emptiness that is fuller than any fullness. You don't need to understand everything or have all the answers. You simply need to remain open to the wonder and beauty of existence itself. The questions that may have driven your spiritual search: who am I? What is the meaning of life? How can I find lasting happiness? Begin to dissolve, not because they have been answered, but because the one who was asking them has been revealed to be the very answer they were seeking. You are the meaning you were looking for. You are the happiness you were pursuing. You are the love you were hoping to find, not the small, separate self that you may have taken yourself to be, but the vast, open awareness that is your deepest identity and the source of all experience. This recognition doesn't come as a dramatic revelation, but as a gentle remembering, like waking up from a dream and realizing that you were never really in danger, never really lost, never really separate from the love and safety you were seeking. The whole spiritual journey has been a kind of cosmic game of hide and seek, where you have been both the seeker and the sought. Now the game is coming to an end, not because you have won or lost, but because you have remembered that there was never really anyone hiding and no one seeking. There is only the one consciousness playing all the roles, experiencing itself from countless perspectives, awakening to its own nature through the apparent journey of individual beings seeking enlightenment. This understanding brings with it a profound sense of humor and lightness. The whole drama of spiritual seeking, with all its intensity and seriousness, is revealed to be a kind of cosmic comedy, where the punchline is that there was never really a problem to be solved in the first place. This doesn't invalidate the journey or make the seeking meaningless. The journey was necessary for the recognition to occur. The seeking was the very mechanism by which consciousness awakens to itself. Every step was perfect. Every struggle was purposeful. Every moment of confusion was part of the larger pattern of awakening. But now you can relax into the understanding that the journey is complete, not because you have arrived somewhere else, but because you have recognized where you have always been. The seeking can end not because you have found what you were looking for, but because you have realized that you are what you were looking for. Sleep comes now as a natural expression of this completion, this coming home to yourself. You don't need to maintain any special state or hold on to any particular understanding. You can simply let go completely, trusting that what is real in your realization will remain, and what was merely conceptual will naturally fall away. In the morning, you will wake as the same person you have always been, yet somehow everything will be different. The world will look the same, but you will see it with new eyes. Your life will continue with its familiar patterns and responsibilities, but you will engage with them from a new depth of presence and understanding. The integration of this understanding into daily life is the real work that lies ahead. It's one thing to touch these truths in the special conditions of meditation or spiritual retreat. It's another thing entirely to embody them in the midst of traffic jams, difficult relationships, work pressures, and all the other challenges of contemporary life. But you are ready for this integration because you have learned that awakening is not about escaping from ordinary life, but about bringing extraordinary presence to ordinary activities. You have discovered that the sacred is not separate from the mundane, but is the very essence of the mundane when perceived with clear eyes. The monastery in the mountains was beautiful and inspiring, but the real monastery is your own life, with all its imperfections and challenges. The real practice is how you meet each moment with presence and love. The real teacher is whatever situation you find yourself in right now. This understanding will sustain you through whatever lies ahead. When difficulties arise, you will remember that they are opportunities to practice patience and compassion. When joys come, you will appreciate them without clinging. When changes occur, you will flow with them rather than resisting. You have learned to trust the process of life itself, to see that everything that happens is part of a larger intelligence that is always working for the highest good of all beings. This doesn't mean that everything that happens is pleasant or easy, but it means that everything can be used for awakening if met with the right understanding. As sleep finally claims you, you rest in this trust, this fundamental faith in the goodness and intelligence of existence itself. You are held by love, guided by wisdom, supported by the very fabric of reality. You are safe. You are home. You are exactly where you need to be. The ancient wisdom of Tibet flows through your dreams tonight, continuing its work of transformation in the depths of your unconscious mind. The masters and teachers you have encountered become part of your inner guidance system, their voices joining the chorus of wisdom that speaks from your own deepest knowing. Tomorrow brings new opportunities to embody what you have learned, new chances to express the love and wisdom that are your true nature. But for now, there is only this moment of perfect rest, this complete surrender to the mystery of existence, this total trust in the process of awakening that is always unfolding. Sleep well, dear friend. Dream deeply of the infinite possibilities that await your awakened heart. And when you wake, may you remember that you are both the dreamer and the dream, both the seeker and the sought, both the student and the teacher in the eternal classroom of existence. From the highest peaks of Tibet to the deepest valleys of your own heart, the ancient wisdom continues its eternal flow, carrying you always toward the recognition of your own Buddha nature. Rest now in this knowing. Wake tomorrow in this peace. Live always in this love. Good night, and may all beings everywhere awaken to their true nature and find the peace that passes all understanding. In the silence between sleeping and waking, in the space between one breath and the next, in the pause between one thought and another, there exists a doorway to the infinite. This doorway has no physical location, requires no special key, demands no particular qualification for entry. It is always present, always available, always open to those who have learned to recognize it. Tonight, as you rest in the afterglow of your journey through the sacred mountains of Tibet, you find yourself naturally drawn to this doorway. The teachings you have received, the masters you have encountered, the wisdom you have absorbed, all of these have been preparing you for this moment of recognition, this gentle awakening to what has always been present, but perhaps never fully acknowledged. The doorway is not separate from you. You are not approaching it from the outside, seeking entry into some foreign territory. You are the doorway itself, the very opening through which the infinite expresses itself in the world of form and experience. Your consciousness is the space in which all phenomena arise and dissolve, the awareness in which all experiences unfold. This recognition brings with it a profound sense of coming home, not to a place, but to a way of being that is so natural and familiar that you wonder how you could have ever forgotten it. It's like remembering your own name after a period of amnesia, or recognizing your own face in a mirror after years of looking at photographs of strangers. The spiritual journey you have taken tonight, with all its encounters and teachings, has been a process of remembering rather than learning, of uncovering rather than acquiring, of returning rather than arriving. Every step has been leading you back to this simple recognition of what you have always been, beneath all the layers of conditioning and identification. Milarepa's cave, where he discovered that the empty mind he was seeking was the very awareness that was seeking it, becomes a symbol for your own inner sanctuary, the space of pure consciousness that is always present, always peaceful, always free. You don't need to travel to a physical cave in the mountains to access this sanctuary. It is as close as your next breath, as immediate as this very moment. The merchant's transformation from grasping to appreciation, from attachment to freedom, reflects your own growing understanding of how to hold life lightly while engaging with it fully. You are learning to be like the sky that holds all weather patterns without being disturbed by any of them, like the ocean that contains all waves without being limited by any single movement. The young programmer's breakthrough in understanding meditation as debugging rather than forcing reveals the gentle approach that characterizes mature spiritual practice. You no longer need to fight with your mind or struggle against your human nature. You can observe the patterns of thought and emotion with the same patient curiosity that a scientist brings to studying natural phenomena. Drukpa Kunali's teaching about being an actor who is fully engaged in the role, while never forgetting that it's a performance, shows you how to live authentically in the world while maintaining the lightness that comes from understanding the constructed nature of all identities and experiences. You can be completely yourself while knowing that this self is itself a kind of cosmic costume that consciousness wears for the duration of this lifetime. The woman who had practiced for 20 years without finding enlightenment, only to discover that her very sense of failure was itself a sign of profound progress, mirrors your own journey from seeking to finding, to realizing that the seeker and the sought were never separate. The exhaustion of the seeking mind is not a defeat, but a victory, not an ending, but a beginning. Each village you passed through on your descent from the mountains offered its own unique perspective on how awakened understanding can be lived in the context of ordinary human activities. The gardener who tended her plants with mindful attention, the craftsman who found meditation in his weaving, the healer who understood that the deepest medicine is presence and compassion, all demonstrated that enlightenment is not an escape from human life, but the fullest possible engagement with it. The nomads taught you that true security comes not from accumulating possessions, but from developing the inner resources that allow you to adapt to any circumstance. The musicians showed you how the middle way manifests in the perfect balance between effort and ease, between structure and spontaneity. The healers revealed that pain is often the teacher that points toward where balance needs to be restored. All of these teachings converge in this moment as you prepare to surrender completely to sleep, to let go of the day's activities and concerns, to trust in the natural process of rest and renewal that your body and mind require. Sleep becomes a practice of letting go, a daily rehearsal for the ultimate letting go that awaits all beings, a return to the source from which all experience arises. But this letting go is not a loss or a defeat. It is a homecoming, a return to the vast awareness that is your deepest nature. In sleep, the boundaries of the separate self dissolve, and you return temporarily to the oceanic consciousness from which all individual waves of experience emerge. You remember, if only unconsciously, that you are not just the wave but the entire ocean. The dreams that may come tonight are not separate from your spiritual practice, but are another dimension of the same consciousness that has been exploring the teachings throughout your mountain journey. In dreams, the logical mind relaxes its control, and deeper patterns of wisdom can emerge. The symbols and stories that arise in sleep often carry teachings that the rational mind cannot access directly. Whether you dream or rest in dreamless sleep, whether you maintain awareness or surrender completely to unconsciousness, you can trust that the same intelligence that guides your waking spiritual development is also at work during sleep. The consciousness that seeks awakening is the same consciousness that dreams, the same awareness that rests in deep sleep, the same presence that will wake tomorrow morning. This continuity of awareness across all states of consciousness is itself a profound teaching about your true nature. You are not just the waking personality that thinks and plans and worries. You are not just the dreaming mind that creates elaborate scenarios and symbolic narratives. You are the awareness that is present in all states, the consciousness that witnesses all experiences, the presence that remains constant through all changes. Recognizing this continuity brings tremendous peace because it means that your essential nature is never threatened by any temporary state or condition. Whether you are happy or sad, healthy or sick, successful or struggling, the awareness that you truly are remains untouched and undiminished. Like the sun that continues to shine even when hidden by clouds, your true nature remains perfect and unchanging, regardless of the temporary conditions that may arise in your mind and life. This understanding transforms your relationship to all of life's experiences. Difficulties become opportunities to practice patience and compassion, rather than threats to your well-being. Pleasures become gifts to be appreciated, rather than experiences to be grasped and held. Changes become natural expressions of the dynamic nature of existence, rather than disruptions to be resisted. You begin to see that everything that happens in your life is part of a larger curriculum designed to awaken you to your true nature. Every challenge is a teaching about letting go of attachment. Every joy is a reminder of the happiness that is your birthright. Every relationship is an opportunity to practice love and understanding. Every moment is an invitation to be present and aware. This perspective doesn't make life easier in the conventional sense. You will still face difficulties, experience losses, encounter situations that challenge your patience and understanding, but you will meet these experiences from a completely different foundation, not as a separate individual struggling against hostile forces, but as consciousness itself, exploring its own nature through the apparent drama of human existence. This shift in identity is perhaps the most profound transformation that spiritual practice can bring. You discover that you are not a person having spiritual experiences, but spirit itself having a human experience. You are not a seeker looking for enlightenment, but enlightenment itself, temporarily forgetting and remembering its own nature. This recognition brings with it both tremendous freedom and profound responsibility. Freedom, because you realize that your essential nature can never be damaged or diminished by any external circumstance. Responsibility, because you understand that how you live your life affects the entire web of existence of which you are an integral part. Your thoughts, words, and actions ripple out into the world like stones thrown into a still pond, affecting everyone and everything they touch. When you live from awakened awareness, these ripples carry the qualities of peace, love, and wisdom. When you act from unconsciousness and reactivity, they spread confusion and suffering. You have the power to choose which kind of influence you want to have in the world. This power is not something you need to develop or acquire. It is inherent in your very nature as a conscious being. Every moment offers you the opportunity to choose love over fear, presence over distraction, wisdom over reactivity. These choices may seem small and insignificant, but they are actually the most important decisions you can make, because they determine the quality of your experience and your contribution to the collective consciousness of humanity. As you settle deeper into sleep, you can feel this understanding, integrating into every cell of your body, every fiber of your being. Tomorrow, when you wake, you may not consciously remember all the details of your mountain journey, but the essence of what you have learned will remain with you. It will express itself in moments of spontaneous presence, in acts of natural compassion, in a general sense of peace and well-being that doesn't depend on external circumstances. The transformation that authentic spiritual practice brings is often subtle and gradual. It's not usually a dramatic sudden change, but a gentle shift in perspective that affects everything while being obvious in nothing. People may notice that you seem more peaceful, more present, more genuinely caring, but they may not be able to identify exactly what has changed. This subtlety is actually a sign of genuine realization. When awakening is authentic, it doesn't need to announce itself or prove its validity. It simply expresses itself naturally through the quality of presence and love that emanates from one who has remembered their true nature. Like a flower that releases its fragrance without effort or intention, awakened consciousness naturally blesses everything it touches. The great masters you encountered in your mountain journey were remarkable, not because they performed miracles or displayed supernatural powers, but because they embodied such complete naturalness and authenticity. They had become so thoroughly themselves that their very presence was a teaching about the possibility of living from one's deepest truth. This is the direction your own development is taking, not toward becoming someone special or different, but toward becoming more completely and authentically yourself. The spiritual path is not about adding something to what you are, but about removing the obstacles that prevent your true nature from shining forth. Like a sculptor who reveals the statue that was always hidden in the marble, spiritual practice reveals the awakened being that has always been present within you. The chiseling away of ignorance, the polishing of awareness, the refinement of compassion, all of these serve to uncover what was never actually absent. This understanding brings tremendous relief because it means you don't have to become perfect or achieve some impossible standard to be worthy of love and happiness. You are already perfect in your essential nature, already worthy of infinite love, already complete in your deepest being. The spiritual journey is simply the process of remembering and embodying this truth. As sleep draws nearer, you can feel yourself relaxing into this fundamental okayness, this basic trust in your own nature and the nature of existence itself. The anxiety and striving that may have characterized your spiritual seeking in the past give way to a gentle confidence in the natural process of awakening that is already underway. You don't need to force anything or make anything happen. You simply need to remain open and available to the wisdom and love that are always seeking to express themselves through you. Like a flower that opens naturally to the sun, your consciousness naturally opens to the light of awareness when the conditions are right. The teachings you have received, the practices you have learned, the insights you have gained, all of these create the conditions that support this natural opening. They are like the gardener's care that helps the flower bloom, not by forcing it open, but by providing the nutrients and environment it needs to unfold according to its own inner nature. Sleep itself is part of this natural process. In sleep, the conscious mind steps aside and allows deeper processes of integration and healing to take place. The wisdom you have absorbed during your waking hours continues to work within you during sleep, weaving itself into the fabric of your being in ways that the rational mind cannot direct or control. Trust this process. Trust the intelligence of your own consciousness to know how to integrate these teachings in the way that serves your highest good. Trust the natural rhythm of sleeping and waking, of learning and integrating, of seeking and finding that characterizes the spiritual journey. You are held by forces much larger and wiser than your individual will or understanding. The same intelligence that grows your hair and beats your heart is also guiding your spiritual development. The same love that holds the planets in their orbits is also supporting your journey toward awakening. This cosmic support is not something you need to earn or deserve. It is freely given to all beings as part of the fundamental structure of existence itself. You are loved not because of what you have achieved or how spiritual you have become, but simply because you exist, because you are a unique and precious expression of the one consciousness that manifests as all things. Rest in this love tonight. Let it surround you like a warm blanket. Let it penetrate every cell of your body. Let it dissolve any remaining sense of separation or unworthiness. You are held. You are cherished. You are blessed beyond measure, simply by virtue of being alive and aware in this moment. The mountain journey you have taken tonight is both a metaphor and a reality. On one level, it represents the inner journey that every sincere seeker must take toward the recognition of their true nature. On another level, it is a real encounter with the wisdom and compassion that are always available to those who are ready to receive them. The masters you met are both historical figures who actually lived and taught, and archetypal representations of the awakened qualities that exist within your own consciousness. The teachings you received are both ancient wisdom that has been preserved for centuries and fresh insights that arise spontaneously when the mind is open and receptive. This paradox is itself a teaching about the nature of reality, which cannot be captured completely by any single perspective or interpretation. Truth is both absolute and relative, both timeless and immediate, both universal and personal. The spiritual path involves learning to hold these apparent contradictions without needing to resolve them into a single, consistent system. Life itself is full of such paradoxes. You are both an individual and part of the whole, both temporary and eternal, both limited and unlimited. The awakened mind learns to embrace these paradoxes rather than trying to eliminate them, finding in their very contradictoriness a pointer to the mystery that lies beyond all conceptual understanding. As you drift towards sleep, you can feel yourself settling into this mystery, this unknowing that is more profound than any knowledge, this emptiness that is fuller than any fullness. You don't need to understand everything or have all the answers. You simply need to remain open to the wonder and beauty of existence itself. the questions that may have driven your spiritual search. Who am I? What is the meaning of life? How can I find lasting happiness? Begin to dissolve not because they have been answered, but because the one who was asking them has been revealed to be the very answer they were seeking. You are the meaning you were looking for. You are the happiness you were pursuing. You are the love you were hoping to find. Not the small, separate self that you may have taken yourself to be, but the vast, open awareness that is your deepest identity and the source of all experience. This recognition doesn't come as a dramatic revelation, but as a gentle remembering, like waking up from a dream and realizing that you were never really in danger, never really lost, never really separate from the love and safety you were seeking. The whole spiritual journey has been a kind of cosmic game of hide and seek, where you have been both the seeker and the sought. Now, the game is coming to an end, not because you have won or lost, but because you have remembered that there was never really anyone hiding and no one seeking. There is only the one consciousness playing all the roles, experiencing itself from countless perspectives, awakening to its own nature through the apparent journey of individual beings seeking enlightenment. This understanding brings with it a profound sense of humor and lightness. The whole drama of spiritual seeking, with all its intensity and seriousness, is revealed to be a kind of cosmic comedy, where the punchline is that there was never really a problem to be solved in the first place. This doesn't invalidate the journey or make the seeking meaningless. The journey was necessary for the recognition to occur. The seeking was the very mechanism by which consciousness awakens to itself. Every step was perfect. Every struggle was purposeful. Every moment of confusion was part of the larger pattern of awakening. But now you can relax into the understanding that the journey is complete, not because you have arrived somewhere else, but because you have recognized where you have always been. The seeking can end not because you have found what you were looking for, but because you have realized that you are what you were looking for. Sleep comes now, as a natural expression of this completion, this coming home to yourself. You don't need to maintain any special state or hold on to any particular understanding. You can simply let go completely, trusting that what is real in your realization will remain, and what was merely conceptual will naturally fall away. In the morning, you will wake as the same person you have always been, yet somehow everything will be different. The world will look the same, but you will see it with new eyes. Your life will continue with its familiar patterns and responsibilities, but you will engage with them from a new depth of presence and understanding. The integration of this understanding into daily life is the real work that lies ahead. It's one thing to touch these truths in the special conditions of meditation or spiritual retreat. It's another thing entirely to embody them in the midst of traffic jams, difficult relationships, work pressures, and all the other challenges of contemporary life. But you are ready for this integration because you have learned that awakening is not about escaping from ordinary life, but about bringing extraordinary presence to ordinary activities. You have discovered that the sacred is not separate from the mundane, but is the very essence of the mundane when perceived with clear eyes. The monastery in the mountains was beautiful and inspiring, but the real monastery is your own life, with all its imperfections and challenges. The real practice is how you meet each moment with presence and love. The real teacher is whatever situation you find yourself in right now. This understanding will sustain you through whatever lies ahead. When difficulties arise, you will remember that they are opportunities to practice patience and compassion. When joys come, you will appreciate them without clinging. When changes occur, you will flow with them rather than resisting. You have learned to trust the process of life itself, to see that everything that happens is part of a larger intelligence that is always working for the highest good of all beings. This doesn't mean that everything that happens is pleasant or easy, but it means that everything can be used for awakening if met with the right understanding. As sleep finally claims you, you rest in this trust, this fundamental faith in the goodness and intelligence of existence itself. You are held by love, guided by wisdom, supported by the very fabric of reality. You are safe, you are home, you are exactly where you need to be. The ancient wisdom of Tibet flows through your dreams tonight, continuing its work of transformation in the depths of your unconscious mind. The masters and teachers you have encountered become part of your inner guidance system, their voices joining the chorus of wisdom that speaks from your own deepest knowing. Tomorrow brings new opportunities to embody what you have learned, new chances to express the love and wisdom that are your true nature. But for now, there is only this moment of perfect rest, this complete surrender to the mystery of existence, this total trust in the process of awakening that is always unfolding. Sleep well, dear friend. Dream deeply of the infinite possibilities that await your awakened heart. And when you wake, may you remember that you are both the dreamer and the dream, both the seeker and the sought, both the student and the teacher in the eternal classroom of existence. From the highest peaks of Tibet to the deepest valleys of your own heart, the ancient wisdom continues its eternal flow, carrying you always toward the recognition of your own Buddha nature. Rest now in this knowing. Wake tomorrow in this peace. Live always in this love. Good night, and may all beings everywhere awaken to their true nature and find the peace that passes all understanding. In the deepest silence of the night, when the world has settled into rest and the mind has released its grip on the day's concerns, there exists a space of pure potential where all possibilities converge. This is the space you enter now, the sacred threshold between waking and sleeping, between knowing and unknowing, between being someone and being no one at all. Here, in this liminal realm, the teachings of the Tibetan masters continue their gentle work of transformation. Like seeds planted in the fertile darkness of the unconscious mind, they will sprout and grow in ways that your rational mind cannot predict or control. The wisdom you have received tonight will unfold in your life in perfect timing, manifesting as spontaneous insights, natural compassion, and effortless presence. You need not worry about remembering every detail of your mountain journey or holding on to every teaching you have received. The essence of what you have learned has already become part of you, woven into the very fabric of your being. Like a river that has absorbed the minerals from the mountains through which it flows, your consciousness has been enriched by its passage through the sacred landscape of Tibetan wisdom. The masters you have encountered, Milarepa with his profound understanding of natural mind, the abbot with his teachings on non-attachment, Lama Tsongkhapa with his skillful integration of wisdom and compassion, Drukpa Kunli with his playful approach to enlightenment. All of these figures represent aspects of your own awakened nature. They are not separate beings offering you something from the outside, but reflections of the wisdom and compassion that already exist within your own heart. As you drift deeper into sleep, you can feel their presence not as external guides, but as inner voices of wisdom that will speak to you in moments of uncertainty, comfort you in times of difficulty, and remind you of your true nature when you forget. They have become part of your inner Sangha, your spiritual community that transcends the boundaries of time and space. The villages you pass through on your descent from the mountains, with their simple demonstrations of wisdom in action, and to remind you that enlightenment is not an exotic achievement reserved for special people in special places. It is the natural expression of any human being who lives with presence, kindness, and acceptance. The elderly woman tending her garden, the craftsman weaving his carpets, the healer preparing her medicines, all showed you that every activity can become a spiritual practice when approached with the right understanding. This understanding will transform your daily life in subtle but profound ways. You will find yourself bringing more attention to simple activities like eating, walking, and breathing. You will notice moments of natural presence arising spontaneously throughout your day. You will discover that you respond to challenges with greater patience and to joys with deeper appreciation. These changes may be so gradual and natural that you hardly notice them at first, but others will sense the difference in your presence. There will be a quality of peace and authenticity about you that draws people and creates a sense of safety and acceptance in your company. You will become a blessing to everyone you encounter, not through any effort or intention, but simply through the natural radiance of your awakened heart. The path that led you through the mountains of Tibet tonight is the same path that every sincere seeker must walk, the journey from seeking to finding, from confusion to clarity, from separation to unity. It is a path that has been walked by countless beings throughout history, and it is a path that will continue to be walked by countless beings in the future. You are part of this ancient lineage of awakening, this timeless tradition of beings who have recognized their true nature and dedicated their lives to helping others make the same recognition. Your own awakening is not just a personal achievement, but a contribution to the collective evolution of consciousness on this planet. Every moment of presence you cultivate, every act of compassion you perform, every instant of clear seeing you experience, adds to the sum total of awakening in the world. You are not just seeking your own liberation, but participating in the liberation of all beings. For in the deepest sense, there are no separate beings to be liberated. This understanding brings with it both great responsibility and great freedom. Responsibility because you recognize that your state of consciousness affects everyone and everything around you. Freedom because you realize that you are not a separate individual, struggling alone against the forces of ignorance and suffering, but an expression of the same awakened awareness that manifests as all the great teachers and masters. As you surrender completely to sleep now, you do so with the confidence of one who knows that they are held by love, guided by wisdom, and supported by the very fabric of reality itself. You are not falling into unconsciousness, but returning to the source, not losing awareness, but expanding it beyond the boundaries of the individual self. In sleep, you will continue to receive teachings, though they may come in the form of dreams, symbols, and intuitive insights, rather than words and concepts. The same consciousness that guided your journey through the mountains tonight will continue to guide your inner development during sleep, weaving together all the threads of understanding into a tapestry of wisdom that will serve you throughout your life. When you wake tomorrow morning, you will do so as both the same person you have always been and someone completely new. The continuity of your personality and memories will remain intact, but the foundation of your identity will have shifted from the small, separate self to the vast, open awareness that is your true nature. This shift may be subtle at first, manifesting as a general sense of peace and well-being, rather than any dramatic change in your circumstances or behavior. But over time, as this new understanding integrates more fully into your life, you will find that everything begins to change. Not because you are trying to change anything, but because you are seeing everything from a completely different perspective. Problems that once seemed overwhelming will appear manageable. Relationships that were sources of stress will become opportunities for growth and understanding. Work that felt meaningless will reveal its deeper purpose. Life itself will be transformed from a struggle for survival and success into a celebration of existence and an expression of love. This transformation is not something you need to force or strive for. It will happen naturally as the understanding you have gained tonight continues to unfold in your consciousness. Like a flower that opens to the sun without effort or intention, your life will naturally align itself with the truth you have recognized about your own nature and the nature of reality. The ancient wisdom of Tibet that has guided your journey tonight is not bound by culture, religion, or historical period. It is the universal wisdom that emerges whenever human consciousness turns inward and discovers its own true nature. It is the same wisdom that has been expressed by mystics and sages in every tradition, the same understanding that lies at the heart of all authentic spiritual teaching. You have touched this universal wisdom tonight, not as something foreign or exotic, but as the recognition of what you have always known at the deepest level. The journey through the mountains was simply a way of remembering what you had temporarily forgotten, of uncovering what was never really lost, of finding what was never actually missing. Now, as you rest in the peace that passes all understanding, you do so with the knowledge that this peace is not dependent on any external circumstance or condition. It is your natural state, your birthright, your deepest reality. It cannot be taken from you because it is what you are, not what you have. Sleep now in this peace, rest in this love, dream in this freedom. And when you wake, may you remember that the monastery is wherever you are, the teachings are whatever you encounter, and the path is whatever step you are taking right now. From the roof of the world to the depths of your heart, the ancient wisdom flows like a river of light, carrying you always toward the recognition of your own Buddha nature. May you rest in this knowing. May you wake in this peace. May you live in this love. Good night, dear friend. May your sleep be deep, your dreams be peaceful, and your awakening be gentle. And may all beings everywhere find the peace and freedom that is their true nature. The stars above the Tibetan plateau shine with the same light that illuminates your consciousness in this moment. Across the vast expanse of space and time, the same awareness that looks out through your eyes has looked out through the eyes of every awakened being who has ever lived. You are not alone in this recognition. You are part of an infinite community of consciousness that transcends all boundaries of culture, history, and individual identity. Tonight, as you rest in the understanding that has emerged from your journey through the sacred mountains, you join this timeless community of awakened beings. Your recognition of your true nature adds your unique voice to the eternal song of enlightenment that has been sung throughout the ages. You become both a student and a teacher, both a seeker and a finder, both a wave and the ocean itself. The teachings you have received will continue to unfold in your life, like a lotus flower opening to the Sunday. Each day will bring new opportunities to embody the wisdom and compassion you have discovered. Each moment will offer a fresh chance to live from the understanding that you are not separate from the love and peace you have been seeking. This is the greatest gift of the spiritual journey, not the achievement of some special state or status, but the simple recognition of what has always been true. You are already whole, already complete, already perfect in your essential nature. The path has led you not to something new, but to something eternal. The journey has brought you not to a distant destination, but to the recognition that you are already home. Sleep now in this homecoming, rest in this completion, dream in this perfection. And when you wake, may you continue to walk the pathless path with the joy of one who knows that every step is sacred, every breath is holy, every moment is a gift of infinite grace. From the highest peaks of Tibet to the deepest chambers of your heart, the ancient wisdom continues its eternal dance, awakening consciousness to its own true nature. You are this consciousness. You are this awakening. You are this eternal dance of love, discovering itself in form. Rest now, beloved friend, in the infinite peace that is your birthright. Sleep in the love that is your essence. Dream in the freedom that is your deepest reality. And may all beings everywhere awaken to the truth of their own Buddha nature. Good night, and may the blessings of all the awakened masters flow through your dreams and into your waking life, now and always. In the silence that follows these words, in the space between the last teaching and the first dream, in the gentle transition from waking consciousness to the mystery of sleep, you find yourself held by something vast and loving that has no name but encompasses all names, that has no form but gives birth to all forms, that has no beginning but is the source of all beginnings. This is the great Mother Consciousness from which all experiences arise and to which they all return. It is the womb of creation and the tomb of dissolution, the Alpha and Omega of existence, the eternal now that contains all time, and the infinite here that embraces all space. You are not separate from this consciousness. You are this consciousness, temporarily experiencing itself as an individual being on a journey of awakening. The mountain path you have walked tonight, with all its encounters and revelations, has been this consciousness exploring its own nature through the apparent journey of a seeker finding truth. The masters you have met have been this consciousness teaching itself through the apparent relationship between teacher and student. The wisdom you have received has been this consciousness remembering itself through the apparent process of learning and understanding. Now, as you prepare to surrender to sleep, you do so with the understanding that even this surrender is this same consciousness, exploring another facet of its infinite nature. Sleep is not an absence of awareness, but a different mode of awareness. Not a loss of consciousness, but a transformation of consciousness. Not a departure from the spiritual path, but another step along the pathless path of awakening. In your dreams tonight, if dreams arise, they will be this consciousness, playing with its own creative potential, exploring possibilities, processing experiences, and continuing the eternal work of awakening to its own true nature. In dreamless sleep, if such deep rest comes, you will rest in the very source of consciousness itself, the pure awareness that is prior to all experience, and yet is the foundation of all experience. Whether you dream or rest in dreamless sleep, whether you maintain some thread of awareness or surrender completely to unconsciousness, you can trust that the same intelligence that has guided your spiritual development throughout your life will continue its work during the night hours. The process of awakening does not stop when you close your eyes. It continues in dimensions of consciousness that the waking mind cannot access directly. When morning comes and you open your eyes to a new day, You will do so as one who has been touched by the ancient wisdom of Tibet, blessed by the presence of great masters, and reminded of your own Buddha nature. The world may look the same, but you will see it with eyes that have been cleansed by understanding. Your life may continue with its familiar patterns, but you will live it from a depth of presence that transforms everything. This transformation is the real fruit of the spiritual journey, not the accumulation of experiences or the achievement of special states, but the gradual shift from living as a separate self to living as consciousness itself. This shift changes everything while changing nothing, transforms your entire world while leaving the world exactly as it island. You will find that you respond to life's challenges with greater equanimity, not because you have learned techniques for managing stress, but because you have remembered that your true nature is the awareness that remains peaceful, regardless of what appears within it. You will discover that you love more freely and deeply, not because you have practiced loving-kindness meditation, but because you have recognized that love is what you are, not what you do. You will notice that you are naturally more present and attentive, not because you have trained your mind to focus, but because you have realized that presence is your natural state when you stop trying to be somewhere else. You will experience a spontaneous sense of gratitude and wonder, not because you have cultivated these attitudes, but because you have awakened to the miracle of existence itself. These changes will unfold naturally and effortlessly as the understanding you have gained tonight continues to integrate into your daily life. You don't need to try to be different or work to maintain any special state. You simply need to trust the process of awakening that is already underway and allow it to express itself through your unique personality and circumstances. The ancient masters of Tibet understood that awakening is not something that happens to you, but something that you are. It is not a goal to be achieved, but a reality to be recognized. It is not a future possibility, but a present fact that has been temporarily obscured by the clouds of conditioning and identification. Your journey through the mountains tonight has been a process of cloud clearing, of removing the obstacles that have prevented you from seeing what has always been present. The teachings you have received have not given you anything new, but have helped you remember what you have always known. The masters you have encountered have not transformed you, but have reflected back to you your own awakened nature. Now, as you rest in this recognition, you do so with the confidence of one who has come home after a long journey, who has found what they were looking for in the last place they thought to look, within themselves. You are no longer seeking because you have found. You are no longer becoming because you have recognized what you have always been. You are no longer traveling because you have arrived at the destination that was never separate from the starting point. This is the great joke of the spiritual path, the cosmic humor that emerges when you realize that you have been searching everywhere for what you already are. It is like looking for your glasses while wearing them, or searching for your keys while holding them in your hand. The very one who was seeking was what was being sought. The very consciousness that was looking for enlightenment was enlightenment itself. Sleep now in this understanding, rest in this recognition, dream in this realization, and when you wake tomorrow, may you continue to live from this truth, to embody this wisdom, to express this love in every moment of your precious human life. The journey through Tibet ends here, but the journey of awakening continues with every breath, every heartbeat, every moment of awareness. You are both the traveler and the destination, both the path and the one who walks it, both the seeker and the sought, in the eternal dance of consciousness, awakening to itself. From the roof of the world to the depths of your being, from the ancient wisdom of the masters to the fresh insight of this moment, from the sacred mountains of Tibet to the holy ground of your own heart. The truth remains constant and eternal. You are already what you seek. You are already home. You are already free. Good night, dear friend. Sleep in peace, dream in love, and wake in the joy of your own Buddha nature. May all beings everywhere recognize their true nature and find the happiness that is their birthright. And may the wisdom of the ages continue to flow through awakened hearts like yours, blessing the world with the light of understanding. Om Mani Padme Hum. The jewel is in the lotus. The treasure is in your heart. The answer is in the question. The destination is in the journey. You are already there.